Let me ask you all a question. How many of you all here, how many of you know someone that has cancer? Thank you. Now, did you tell people who who have cancer where you were coming today? And what did they say? Did they say they wanted to come? No, huh? They didn't want to come? Not in the state. What about the one? Not everybody. Here's the thing. And that's why I'm so glad that you people are here. One of the things we talked about yesterday, which was the part one of what we were doing, was called, as you remember, it's on the screening to treatment. Healing starts with my advocacy. And if you look on that, the key word is my advocacy. Because the idea that we are waiting for someone or something to come down and bestow some healing upon us, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen unless we take the step, that first step. Sometimes, as a little boy, my mother did two things for me. One which I am forever mad at her, and the other one which I am forever grateful. The thing I'm mad about her, 1963, there was the March on Washington. I was 10 years old. She asked me if I wanted to go to the march, and I said, no, I want to go to the birthday party of this little friend of mine. And she let me go to the birthday party. And I immediately knew that that was the wrong decision. I knew the moment the words left my mouth, that was wrong. And for the rest of my life, I always felt terrible that I was not there at that historic moment. I'm from Washington, D.C., so it was right there. The second thing is, my mama told me, she said, look, son, it's a simple thing. When I went to medical school, she said, look, when you're taking care of a patient, listen to the nurse, because the nurse knows more about that patient than you ever will. And she's right, because she's there, she's listening. But sometimes we don't take advice. The problem is that we don't take and follow through with the advice. We don't even show up to get the advice. And that's the thing that's pissing me off. Right now, African Americans have the highest mortality rate from cancer of any other group in the country. Anybody else. We have the highest incidence here in Kentucky. We have the highest incidence for most cancers that you can name. Lung, colorectal, breast, ovarian. We don't have uterine, that's higher over in eastern Kentucky. But yet, how many times have you heard, not just from this pulpit, but from any church that you've been in, has anyone from here told you about these numbers? You don't hear it. How many of you, not just from this pulpit, from any pulpit that you've ever been in, has the pastor said, these are things we need to do, that we can do to help us with our illnesses? Have you heard it? How many times have you heard from any pulpit here, someone said, 49% of all people in the United States die from cigarette smoking, be it cancer, heart disease, or whatever. Has anyone said that to you? No. I'm not going to go down the line. So I am very happy to see that you're here, because I know that from this day forth, you people are going to talk to your family, to your friends, folks at work, for those of you that still got hair, men, at the barbershop, for you ladies with those fancy nails, you're going to be spending a long time, have these conversations, because it's very important. We have to take responsibility for ourselves. It ain't going to come from on high, and it's definitely not going to come from on low. And if you think I'm joking, look at the recent elections. We are in trouble. We are in deep trouble. But it's not hopeless. It is not hopeless as long as I can reach out and touch someone like you. And you can turn around and touch the person behind you. Because together, we are going to form that black wall. That black wall that says, from this day forth, it stops here. This is our line in the sand. We are not going to take this, and we are going to go forward for our care. We're going to advocate for ourselves, and we're going to do for ourselves. We're not going to let the old okey doke be pulled on us anymore. So I do hope, and I'm very appreciative to see you all out here today. And I hope that you will carry the message that we have from today's workshop, which is part 2 of Screening to Treatment. Healing starts with my advocacy. I hope that we will take ownership of that my advocacy. And it's not just mine that I'm going to hold on to for me to keep, but it's for us to spread around to others. I want to open things up by asking Mr. Stan Watson, who's the National Director of Faith-Based Initiatives, Hill Collaborative, if he'll come up and say a prayer welcoming us here today. Or did the Reverend show? Oh, Reverend. Oh, Reverend, I'm sorry, I didn't see you come in, ma'am. Please, I take that back. We're going to have Reverend Triplett open this up for us.
Good morning. It's good to see everyone today. First of all, let me say I want to welcome everyone, all of our participants that are cooperating today with the Hill Collaborative Collective. It's been a wonderful experience, and I know that those that have been attending have got a wealth of knowledge, and we thank all of our participants for coming today. And we hope this won't be the last time. Maybe we'll come together again next year. Amen. Let's pray. Gracious Father, I thank you and praise you for this day, for all you have provided and prevented in this day. We give you glory, honor, and praise. Thank you so much, God, for the gifts that are in this room, the men and women that are doctors and have researched and will come and share today a wealth of knowledge that will empower us to do better in the way that we live and conduct ourselves each and every day. Continue to bless them individually and their businesses and every collaborative that's here. Bless every agency and the leaders as they continue to do the work to educate our people, to Heavenly Father, for we do not want to be people that will perish because of the lack of knowledge. So for that, we say thank you. We pray that you open the minds and the hearts and the ears of everyone that will be here today so that they will hear. And as a result of what they hear, they will take that information and do better and share it with others, God. We bless you and praise you for every effort and everything that will take place today. And it's in your Son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen. On behalf of our pastor, Pastor Corey Schul, and the Burnett family, thank you so much for coming today. Amen.
A few quick reminders. If you notice on your pamphlets, there'll be a survey. It's pre-survey, and then on the back is the post-survey. We ask that you please fill out the pre-survey for us. And then at the end of it, when we go to lunch, you get a chance to fill out the post-survey, and you can turn it in after we go ahead to lunch. When we have our speakers speak, if you have any, as you think about things, you might want to write down your questions, because at the end of it, we'll have a panel for discussion, and we'll talk a little bit, so you can ask those questions at that time. I'd like to bring up Mr. Stan Watson. He is a former Georgia state legislator, and he's also Deacon Stan Watson. He's the National Director of Faith-Based Initiatives for the Hill Collaborative.
Good morning. Come on, we can do a little bit better now. Good morning. We'd like to thank you for being here this morning. First of all, let's give honor to God, who's truly the head of our lives, whether we know it or not. You didn't wake up by yourself this morning. There are some people that didn't even wake up this morning, and we ought to say thank you. One of the things we try to do at Hill Collaborative is to make sure that we take care of disparities and health equity in our African-American community. We usually do that by bringing information to our churches and other institutions, such as our churches and schools, so that you have a firsthand view of what we talk about when we talk about diversity and health. Our mission has been over the years to make sure that we have this information to a church so that we can have and minister to the whole person or the whole woman, and so that we'll make sure that we don't have any problems later on about getting information for preventative care. Our mission is and continues to make sure that this information is given out in our community. So on behalf of our board of directors and our staff that are here today from Hill Atlanta Collaborative, And also from our sponsor, Amgen, we'd like to welcome you for this second part of our program. We have an august body of speakers. They're going to be interactive, and we have a great moderator. So make sure that, as they say in church, that you just don't become a hearer of this particular word that you're going to hear tonight, this morning, but be a doer. And we appreciate you coming. Thank you so very much.
So to start things off for us, we're going to have as our first speaker, Ms. Ashley Lee. And she's going to be talking about something that's really kind of interesting and very important, and that is mental wellness and behavioral health. Because, believe it or not, there are things that affect us. What is our attitude toward health? Let me ask you a question. I think we have a special guest, someone who has cancer. We asked that question. About any of us have any cancers? Want to share the fact that they don't have? Okay. But anyway, she's going to share that what goes on as far as our thinking process in terms of how we behave toward illnesses and how that impacts as far as screening and then how it impacts us getting treatment. So I'd like to bring up Ms. Ashley Lee. She's Community Engagement and Partnership Coordinator at the Charlie Norwood VA Medical Center. Ms. Lee.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about mental health and suicide prevention. This is a heavy topic, so if at any point during this conversation that you feel you need to step out of the room, take some time to yourself, please do that. If you also need to chat afterwards, please let us know so that I can come and speak with you. Okay. All right, next slide. Oh, this is not my slide. Wait. I think this is somebody else's slides. I'm gonna roll with it. Okay. So first off, I like to start off with general mental health statistics. So 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. 1 in 20 U.S. adults experience serious mental illness each year. If you're not aware of, I'm going to take this mic off. This works. 1 in 4 people with a serious mental illness have been arrested in their lifetime, which means it's leading to over 2 million people that have been placed in jail. 2 in 5 adults that you know in jail or prison have a history of mental illness. 7 out of 10 of our youth in the juvenile justice system have a mental health condition. And more than half the people with a mental health condition in the U.S. did not receive any treatment. Next slide. So now we're going to get into Kentucky mental health statistics. So 43.6% of adults in Kentucky reported symptoms related to anxiety or depression. 22.8% of those adults were unable to get counseling. 746,000 adults in Kentucky have a mental health condition, okay? 189,000 of those adults have a serious mental illness. Out of those adults, 40% did not receive any care because of cost, and 6.5% of the people in this state are uninsured. So in Kentucky, you are 3 times more than likely to be forced out of network for mental health. So when you're forced out of network for mental health, that makes it more challenging for you to even get care or services, particularly if you're uninsured or you can't afford it or you can't find a provider in your area that takes your insurance if you do have it, which leads to people not getting care, not getting treatment for their needs. Also, just looking here, 150,000 adults had thoughts of suicide in Kentucky. That's a staggering number of people. So just think about the people that you walk in and go through the grocery stores you encounter and you're working with that are experiencing thoughts of suicide, that have a mental health condition, that are experiencing mental illness. Next slide. These are just general suicide prevention statistics. So 1 person dies every 10.6 minutes here. So think about the time frame that we're here and how many people will have lost their life due to suicide. 1 person is attempting suicide every 25.6 0.2 seconds. So again, however long we've been in this room, you've got to think, this is somebody making an attempt on ending their life. One male dies by suicide every 13.4 minutes. One female every 51.5 minutes. So one woman dies by suicide literally every hour. One male, that's literally almost every 15 minutes. 4. So the men, which is a big focus that we don't talk about in our community, men and their mental health and their needs, right? Suicide is the 11th leading cause of death, while homicide is the 16th leading cause of death in our society. Okay? The number, 1.6 million people attempted suicide in the US in 2022. Okay? 3.8 million people had a plan to end their life. 13.2 million people seriously thought about suicide. So what this tells me just in general is we're not aware of the thoughts that people are having in their heads in regards to their life, their circumstances. We're not aware of people and their mental health conditions and their needs. Some of us are checking in on people, and we need to be more invested in if someone's not doing well. We need to, instead of walking by someone and say, hey, how you doing? Are you invested if this person says, I'm not doing well? What would you do? Are you going to tell them to pray about it? Are you going to tell them it'll go away? Or I'm going to figure out how I can help you through this, because I don't want to see you lose your life. I want you to be here. I want you to be here not only for yourself, but for your family. One of the things that I will also talk about too is just when you're receiving a diagnosis such as lung cancer, how that impacts your mental health, right? We're focusing so much on the disease process and going to appointments and the financial issues and all these different things, right? What about that person's mental health? What about them dealing with anxiety, depression? What about them having suicidal thoughts? This is a crisis, right? Being diagnosed, receiving that diagnosis, that puts you into crisis mode. And then you're flashing and you're thinking about everything ahead of you with your life, right? So it makes things a lot more challenging for you, not only for the person who's got the diagnosis, but also for your family and your caregiver who's taking care of you during this process. Particularly in our community, 3,967 Black people lost their life to suicide. Again, we're noting the majority of it are males, right? So we really got to pay attention to the Black men in our community. That's what that tells me. And for Black men, and I said Black men, but children too, ages 15 to 24, suicide is the second leading cause of death for them losing their life. So we've got to be more cognizant of talking to people. Most people lose their life to suicide due to firearms. 55% of the time when people lose their life, it's firearm use. So briefly, I'll go into it. What I like to tell people is we don't tell people not to have access to firearms. We're telling you to be more conscious of people that have firearms and they're not doing well, checking in on them on their mental health, using a gun lock, removing the firearm from the home, the medications that the person has access to. Be more cognizant of it. Because, again, people are losing their lives, and it's preventable. That's one big thing that I want you all to come away with today. Suicide is preventable. Mental health conditions that we have, they are treatable. We can get assistance, but we just got to be more cognizant of each other and how we can help that person attain help. Kentucky is ranked 20th in suicide deaths. 823 people lost their life to suicide in 2022 here. So numbers are not overall, quote unquote, high in Kentucky, but they're high enough that almost 900 people lost their life to suicide here. And more than likely, you may know someone or you may be connected to someone who lost their life to suicide in this state in some way, fashion, or form, whether it's somebody that you worked with, a friend, a family member, a church member. You probably know somebody that's lost their life to suicide. Next slide. So first I want to talk about what are the signs of mental health needs. So if someone's feeling sad, they're feeling down, experience worry, isolation, issues with sleep, hard time thinking about things, processing things, we need to be aware of those changes. Alcohol or substance use, if somebody's already using something, be cognizant of it, but also be cognizant if there's an increase. If you know this person normally drinks 3 beers and now they're drinking 10 beers a day, that's something to be concerned with. That tells me something's going on with them because that's not their normal mode. That's not the normal number of drinks or alcohol that they consume. Sex drive changes, whether someone's not having sex or increasing their activity, they're doing abnormal things, be cognizant of that stuff. Eating habit changes, be cognizant of those things. A lot of times when people are going through treatment, they don't want to eat. Sometimes they don't want to eat due to the treatment, but it also could be for mental health, depression. They feel like they're not enjoying the food the way that they used to. So maybe you have to be more creative with creating dishes or trying new recipes with them to encourage them to eat. Be more cautious of these type of issues with sleeping and daily problems and stressors. We have to just be more cognizant of that and paying attention. One thing that I will say is financial issues, issues in relationships, issues on the job, having these more deeper conversations and not blowing people off, right? Somebody's having an issue on their job with their supervisor, talk to them about it. How can I help you? How can we go to the union? What are the issues on the job? Helping walk that person through that process and not necessarily letting them do that alone, right? Because life is an uphill battle and life is a roller coaster, but if I'm fighting that battle all by myself and you blow me off and you say, well, you know, you've been through that before or somebody else has gone through that, you'll get through it. I don't know if you may be the person to get through it or not because the numbers tell me you may become susceptible to losing your life to suicide. So we need to be more cognizant of these things so that way we can help that person out more. Next slide. Okay. So this is risk factors, right? Chronic medical conditions, receiving a diagnosis of cancer, any type of history of traumatic brain injury, brain damage, any history of child abuse, trauma, any previous mental health diagnosis. A lot of people who might be experiencing mental illness, it could be environmental, it could also be biological due to their family history, but also their brain chemistry or inherited traits, their environment, what they've gone through, things that they've experienced. So if someone has experienced any history of abuse, they don't have a history of healthy relationships with people, maybe this is a person that cannot maintain relationships. They might have, 10 women in a year or 5 boyfriends in a year, and they just keep changing out things. They can't maintain friends. All of these are signs to say, hey, maybe something may be going on with them because, again, difficulty maintaining relationships, difficulty with navigating, communicating with people on your job, stuff like that. All of those things are signs that something is going wrong with that person. Something is happening with the person, and they can't process or navigate life themselves. And then also, I already talked about this, but being more cognizant if someone's lost their life, lost a family member, mental health challenges, any type of new diagnosis, relationship issues, all of these things we need to be paying attention to. Next slide. All right, so concerns with seeking treatment. I would say the biggest thing in our community is lack of awareness of what options are available to us, lack of education, lack of providers that look like us in our community, insurance, lack of access to care. All of these things can be things that prevent us from seeking treatment, right? Because again, if I don't have the information and I don't know and no one's helping me out, how can I be expected to seek care? One thing that I will tell you all as well is we want people to view mental health and your health care as the same. I don't want you to separate it because oftentimes we think, well, if this person's got problems or issues, they should be able to go seek care and get that treatment. They've oftentimes got tunnel vision. The things that you see that they're doing, they may not be aware that they're doing those things. They may not be aware of how that comes off. They may not be aware that the things that they're doing are impacting them and harming them. So I may have to walk you through that process. Just like you go to your doctor's appointment with grandma or your friend that has diabetes or blood pressure and all those things, You may have to do those same steps with a person that is having a mental health condition because they may not be aware of what's going on or how their behaviors are coming off. And so they may not know, hey, I need to seek treatment. Hey, some things are going on. I need to talk to somebody. And so we have to be very cognizant of that with people in our community, especially with our friends and family. Like, they may not have the tools to go through and seek treatment. And so how can we help them? Obviously, transportation is another issue. We fear judgment. We fear bias in our community, fearing that this person is going to blow me off because they don't look like me. All of those things are valid and real, but I would encourage you not to let that stop you from getting treatment, because you can find a provider that will help you. You can advocate for yourself and seek a second opinion. Bring somebody with you that may be more knowledgeable to help you out. A doctor cannot tell you that you can't have somebody sitting in the room with you when they're talking to you about something. If you need somebody that is more knowledgeable about something with you, have that person to sit there and advocate for you and help you out. Learn as much as you can as well, right? We don't want to put the onus all on the other person, but you're allowed to have somebody with you. You're allowed to seek a second opinion. You're allowed to even challenge your insurance companies if they don't pay for something. Why? You know? Why should I have to drive 60 miles to go get a service for something because you don't partner with this person here? There are a lot of things that we can do to advocate for ourselves to get help. We just need to, one, acknowledge that we need it. Two, if somebody needs it, try to help them navigate that and advocate for ourselves and fight to get the treatment that we deserve and the care that we need so that we can get better overall. Next slide. How can we reduce the stigma around mental health? First, we can't be calling people crazy, crackhead, lunatic, psycho, other terms that I won't use. We're in a church setting. But we got to stop with that, right? Because when we use those terms with each other, if I hear you saying those things and I know that I'm struggling with something, I'm not going to come to you. Because I've heard you talk about the crackhead on the street, the homeless person. Oh, that girl, she's crazy. Oh, she's psycho. She's got this, she's got that. So why would I feel comfortable coming to you with a challenge, right? I'm going to feel I can deal with the problem myself, or I don't have a problem, because I don't feel that support. So we really got to change our language with each other to make people feel comfortable to come to us with their issues, right? I can't expect somebody to open up to me if I use damaging language that hurts them, right? And I don't know they're struggling. And then we say, oh, I didn't know they were struggling with this. Did I make you feel comfortable to come to me? How do I talk to you? How do I treat you on a normal day-to-day basis? So we've got to really just be cognizant of our language with each other and how we communicate. This person is a person that has a mental health condition. This person is a person that's in need, right? No different than somebody else that has needs a BiPAP or anything else, right? We can't separate the two, right? They're no different. It's all a health issue. So, kind of already talked about this, but we got to reduce the judgment with each other. Let's validate each other's experiences, and let's not be so easily to brush each other off. A lot of times we do that in our community. You'll get over it. So-and-so's been through it. So-and-so's. I don't know your challenges. I don't know how that impacts you, right? I don't know your brain chemistry. I don't know your makeup. I may not know your history, right? So I can't brush you off and tell you you'll get through something when you've had childhood trauma, you've been abused yourself. You may have a history of substance use, all these things that can be going on that can impact your decision making, right? I just need to be there to support you, ask the question, and figure out how we can get you a plan to help you out, right? And so that's the thing that I want us to focus on, reducing our judgment and how can we be there, support someone, and validate them, and moving forward with taking charge of their health care. Next slide. All right. So these are all signs that someone is at risk for suicide. Again, some of these things are the same things that someone who may be experiencing mental illness, alcohol use, substance use, risky behaviors, anger, feeling like a burden, feeling like you don't want to be here anymore. One thing that I do want to touch on is the anger piece, because again, in our community, she just angry, she just upset, she need to cool off, she just going off, that's just her. We've got to pay attention to these things, right? Because anger is a sign, right, that someone may be at risk for suicide. One thing that we didn't touch on with the suicide prevention statistics, I know I made a focus on men because we don't really talk about them in mental health and their needs, but one thing that I would like you all to know is women actually attempt suicide more often than men, though, right? So when we're in relationships with women, these women are our sisters, our mothers, our friends, our coworkers. Be cognizant of the pressures that are on a woman in your community, right? Working, taking care of children, trying to maintain a relationship, being there for people, trying to be a friend, trying to be a daughter. That's a lot on that person, right? And so she may not be expressing to you her needs because you're sick, you've got cancer, you've got this going on, and we're not thinking about that person that's taking care of us, particularly if it's a woman. So women do attempt suicide more often than men, and oftentimes when women are expressing themselves, it can be viewed as anger. So be just more cognizant of that and thinking about, is this person really angry or something else deeper going on with them? And how can I explore that? Particularly with women, but also with our younger folks as well. Because we just think, this person just acting out. They just, whatever. No, let's explore more. If you're acting out and you're angry, there's got to be something else behind it that's making you do that. Because nobody just wants to be angry. Nobody just wants to be impulsive. Nobody just wants to act out or do things, right? So we've got to peel back the layers with people a little bit more to dive into that. Key things is asking a person directly, are you having suicidal thoughts? This is not the time to play. This is not the time to minimize things. You need to ask the question directly. A lot of fear with asking that question is directly, well, if they never said anything, so maybe if I ask you, I'm putting that thought in your head. If somebody's having suicidal thoughts, you're not putting that thought in their head. They're already having that thought. I'm just asking you the direct question, are you having suicidal thoughts? Because you need a direct answer from that person. If the person is hemming and hawing, something is up. That's a yes or no answer. If the answer is no, okay. The person still may need some help and assistance, but they've already checked that box off to you. They're not having suicidal thoughts. If the answer is yes, we need to explore more. Do you have a plan in place to harm yourself? If the person says yes, we need to dive deeper. What does this person have access to in their home? Do they have access to firearms? Do they have access to medications? You need to go deeper. Offering things like, can I take your firearm and hold it, right? These are things you don't have to get the police or a mental health professional involved. If the person trusts you to hold their firearm, if they trust you to take their medications and help them manage it, do that for that person. Again, these are things that we can do within our control, life-saving measures to keep this person around. We also need to, again, validate them. I care about you. I love you. I'm seeing some behavior changes with you. I'm concerned about you. Come from it from a humble place with this person. Not that I'm the know-it-all, be-it-all, but I'm coming to say I'm concerned about you and I see some changes and, I want to help you. How can we do that, right? It may be sitting there talking to that person and listening. And if you say to yourself, I'm not a mental health professional, I don't know what to do with this person, you can still listen. We talk to our friends all the time about relationship problems and everything else. I can listen to you talk about your challenges, right? And you know how you humble yourself even more? This sounds really serious to me, and I'm not a professional, but can I take you to the doctor in the morning? Can I take you to the hospital? If it's serious and they need help immediately and they have a plan in place, take them to the hospital. Let them be evaluated by a mental health professional. If they don't have a plan in place, but you have concerns about them, talk with them. Hey, do you have insurance? Let me look up who's in network with you for your mental health. I'll take an hour off my job to come take you to your mental health appointment. I will sit there with you to make sure, not that you're babysitting them, I'm letting you know I support you. I'm letting you know I care about you. I'm invested in the outcome of you and your life and your livelihood, right? It's not to be nosy or get in your business. It's to make sure that you're okay, right? So these are some things that we have to do with people. They may not know I have access to mental health care through my insurance. But if I know that, and I can call your insurance and help you walk through that process, what's that stopping me from doing that, right? So these are some things that we have to do. We talk about encouraging and getting them treatment, listening, and expediting that assistance. Again, you all are not mental health professionals. I don't expect for you all to know everything. But the main key things that I want you to come away with is asking that question directly, being aware of the signs, validating people, and then again, encouraging them to get treatment, walking them through that process. If you don't know how to do it, call your daughter, call your son, call a friend that may know how to do that, and get this person some help. Next slide. We kind of already touched on this, but safety is always first. Again, if somebody has a plan in place, they're having suicidal thoughts, and they have access to means, go ahead and try to get that person some treatment. Take them to the ER and get them some assistance. Again, we're not expecting you all to be mental health professionals in that kind of urgent need. And just follow this information that's kind of listed on the screen that I've already been aware of. One thing I will say is this: if you're not aware of, the crisis line is 988 for anybody that's in crisis, right? If you are a veteran or calling on behalf of a veteran, it's 988 press 1. You can call the crisis line for somebody. If somebody were to fall out right now, right here, and you didn't know how to help them, you would call 911. Would that be accurate? Right. So why wouldn't you do that for somebody who had a mental health crisis? What would be the difference? So, again, I can't expect you, because you look able-bodied and you look like you've got everything going on and you're going to work, I can't expect you to call and get yourself assistance, right? You got to deem it as somebody that would fall out right now that was having a stroke or heart attack. If you didn't know how to help them, you would call 911. You can call 988 on behalf of somebody. That's a barrier that a lot of people don't think you can do that. Again, side note at the end, a lot of people who are in crisis, usually they are brief and they subside. How does it subside? Talking to the person, walking them through these things, taking control of things that they have access to. If the person lets you hold their firearm for a week or two, okay. If the crisis has subsided, it's okay to give them that firearm back. It's okay to discuss a plan with them. Hey, man, maybe you need a gun lock. If you're a veteran, you can go to the VA and get a gun lock. The gun locks are free. They also have little small gun safes as well through the suicide prevention department. You can go through your primary care, mental health provider. They can get you connected and mail that stuff out to you, or you can ask for it and they should hand it to you in the clinic, particularly if you're a veteran. If it's medications, usually Walgreens or CVS. If you need to get rid of old medications in your home that you're not using, dispense that stuff. Your pharmacy usually will take it and get rid of it for you. A lot of times I tell people to go through your cabinets, clean that stuff out. If you have something prescribed over the counter that is, if you have something over the counter and you have a medication that's prescribed that does the same thing, you usually don't need both. Get rid of them. Any of your old medications, a lot of people do this, so I'm not judging. We keep old medications. We have 5 bottles of Tylenol, Benadryl, all these things. You don't need those things in your home. Get rid of them, right? And if I have something prescribed that is similar to that med, you don't need both. So particularly with children and other people, you need to get rid of those medications and take them out of the home. Next slide. All right. So importance of family supporting your health care. They lead to better outcomes, bottom line. If you're going to the doctor by yourself, you're doing things by yourself, how are you going to have a better outcome for your health care, right? You got to be involved. Important thing is completing a release of information. I don't care who you do it for. Do it with somebody that you trust that is involved in your health care and can advocate for you. If you don't complete a release of information, you're going to make it hard for that person to assist you, right? So let's not be making more challenges than what we already have in regards to our health care needs. Let's help that person out that's advocating for us. An ROI can be rescinded at any time. You can change it. There is confidentiality and HIPAA agreements even within a release of information. If you have certain diagnoses or things that you don't want disclosed, they will not be disclosed to that person. And again, you can change it at any time. And one thing that I will make note, families can call your doctor and provide them with information. They won't tell you anything or give you any further information on the patient, but you have a right to call that doctor and tell them, hey, this is what's going on with that person, and they can receive that information in case you're not aware of that. Next slide. Advanced directives. So basically, the living will, it specifies your medical treatment. Do you want a tube feeding? Do you want dialysis? Things of that nature. Power of attorney, that's for legal, healthcare, financial stuff. Again, you can always change these things at any time. Next slide. Oop. Lastly, I have 3 minutes. Caregivers. Caregiver burnout, that is a big thing. Your caregivers, anybody that's taking care of you, they're probably stressed out. They have a lot going on with themselves. They are taking care of you, they're taking care of kids, they're taking care of parents. We need to be more cognizant of those folks and how we can help them out, particularly in our church community. Can you provide that person with respite? Can you go send somebody to go mow their lawn? Can you have somebody go do something for them, get groceries? Be more cognizant of how we can help these people in the community because they have a big burden on them with having all those roles and hats on them and challenges in terms of taking care of somebody. And if I can help you in my capacity to take that burden off of you, we should be doing that with each other in our community, right? Whatever is within our skill set, right? And I think that's pretty much it. Done. Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. That was really interesting and kind of segues a little bit what one of the things we've been talking about here, almost to the story of the, hey, Doc, how you doing, man? How you doing, Doc? Good seeing you, man. Anyway, I'm sorry. Kind of get to the story about our advocacy and being responsible, watching out for other people. It kind of goes to me to the story about the flood that occurred, and the police department sent out notices, and public health people said, look, there's water coming, there's going to be a flood, evacuate, everyone leave. And then finally, one guy didn't want to leave. He said, I don't need to leave because the Lord's going to take care of me. So rowboat came by. They said, look, man, the waters are going to rise. You need to come on, get in the rowboat with us and go. And the guy said, no, the Lord's going to take care of me. Finally, the waters kept coming higher, and the guy got up onto the roof of his house, and the helicopter came. Helicopter said, look, man, you've got to leave. The guy said, no, the Lord's going to take care of me. Well, the water came above the level of the roof. The guy died and gets up to St. Peter. And he said, what happened? I believed that the Lord was going to take care of me. And the guy said, we did. Who do you think sent you the warning, the rowboat, and the helicopter? Point being, sometimes we have people who are there for us to guide us along. And if anything, we've heard, as I said about our advocacy, sometimes we got to bring people along, meet them where they are, and bring them to get the care that they need. And this is, our next speaker, Mildred Pierre, is going to kind of bring this along where we talk about smoking cessation, because this is one of the hardest things to do. As we heard yesterday from Dr. Flano, perhaps the most addictive, one of the 3 most addictive substances that he told us about yesterday is nicotine. It is a difficult thing to stop. But we know that with smoking, there are increased risks for cancers, not only lung, but other types of cancers also. So try to talk to us a little bit about smoking cessation. We have Ms. Mildred Pierre. She's Regional Director, Community Outreach and Advocacy Engagement with the HEAL Collaborative. Ms. Pierre, thank you.
How you all doing today? Lovely to see you all. My name is Mildred Pierre, like Dr. Tuckson introduced me. I am a regional director at HEAL Collaborative and have the pleasure of serving you this morning. So I'm gonna give you some fun facts. I'm a teacher at heart, and I believe education is power. Thus, why I'm a part of this program. It's a pleasure to be a part of this platform. So give me one moment. And if you turn to your pamphlet, on page 38 is where we start education on tobacco cessation. Okay. So in doing my research to bring this presentation to you, I learned a little bit about Kentucky. Did you know a pack of cigarette is $6.93? And there's $1.10 tax. So when you add that up, a pack of cigarette is $8. So let's start doing some math. So there's some notes on the side of that pamphlet. If you want to write this down, by all means. So if you're a 2-pack-a-day smoker, you're at $16.06 a day. If you smoke a pack a day, every day, for a week, it's $56.21. 2 packs a day, $112.42. So let's think about it. If I'm a pack-a-day smoker for 1 week, I spent $56. That money could have went to my gas tank. If I'm a 2-pack-a-day smoker in 1 week, I spent over $100. That could have went to one of my utility bills, light, water, gas. Now let's look at a monthly sense of this. So if I smoke a pack a day for 30 days, I am spending $241. That's my car insurance money. If I'm a two-day pack smoker, I am spending $482 here in Kentucky, and that is my car note. So if I smoke every day for a year, 1 pack, that's $2,923. That's a vacation. That's something that you could be putting in your saving. That's just 1 year for 1 day, for smoking 1 pack a day. For 2 packs a day for 1 year, that's $5,842. That is down payment on a car. That is paying off your student loans, or maybe one of them. Then let me skip. Now let's look at 5 years. 1 pack a day for smoking here in Kentucky is $14,615. Smoking 2 packs a day is $29,229. That's your kid's wedding. That's tuition. I'm bringing these numbers to let you see how smoking takes away from your life. But I want to encourage you. I'm not here to shame. I'm not here to make you feel bad, but I'm here to educate. My goal is to encourage you through education. So let's get to the program. Next slide, please. Okay, so when I start my classes, I like to ask a few questions. I like to get to know the student. So I ask, why do you smoke? How old were you when you smoked? Where were you when you used your first nicotine product? Have you considered quitting? I don't want to waste my time. I don't want you to waste your time either. This has to be a group effort, a one-on-one effort. If you're willing, I'm willing. However, in this field, I learned to quit, you have to be willing. So I ask convicting questions. Sometimes I have students tell me, I started at the age of 12. I started at the age of 11. I was at my boyfriend's house. I skipped school. There's a lot of different reasons and places where you start, because I need you to remember this on your quit journey. So I also teach the effects of nicotine here. I want you to know how addictive nicotine is. And I know Dr. Fanal mentioned this yesterday in his presentation, but I want you to understand how the nicotine starts. It starts here. It starts when you don't recognize when you even start to realize how addicted you already are, or how addicted the nicotine is already in your body. So endorphins is a chemical that helps relieve pain, stress, and improve mood. So what nicotine does is nicotine enters the body. It is absorbed into the bloodstream. It travels to the brain. There it activates receptors that releases endorphins, dopamine, adrenaline, serotonin, and other chemicals. I know I sound like I'm in chemistry class, right? Other chemicals that create feelings of pleasure and satisfaction. So what happens is the nicotine, whenever you smoke, it tells the brain you feel good. It might even bring down your heart rate. And then so your body starts to get used to that. You want to feel that good feeling again. I asked how old are you when you start? Because if you started as a child, the brain develops up until 26 years old. So if you start smoking as a child, the addiction is a lot more stronger. Thus, your support is very, very needed if you started as a child. But it's very important to know where you started, to encourage and for you to see your journey. Next slide, please. So I put this up because physical, mental, social, these are the three-link chains of addiction. So the physical sense, some people can be physically addicted. Like whenever they quit or decide to quit, they start to get withdrawal. They don't feel good. They get headaches or they feel nauseous. So they are physically addicted. Or they might just be physically used to the memory pattern of picking up the cigarette and bringing it to the mouth. The up and down rotation, I like to say. And then the mental health is, the mental part of addiction is how you could possibly be patterns that trigger you. Mental health, depression. So some people smoke cigarettes to feel better. I was in the car and I was driving and I was feeling stressful, so I picked up a cigarette. So it's an emotional response. And then social. Some people smoke because they're around other people. Some people only smoke because they're around other people. I've had some people in my class quit because of COVID. COVID, we're isolated, right? We couldn't be around a lot of people, and they literally quit because they couldn't be around, they were not around their friends that smoke. And then so I want you to look at overcoming triggers. Overcoming triggers is looking at your pattern, understanding how you started. How old were you when you started? Understanding withdrawals and who you were around, and how does smoking make you feel when you smoke and when you don't smoke. Next slide, please. So this is motivation for quitting. It improves your health. You have more energy. It helps keep your family healthy and set a good example. So improve health. I don't know if you guys noticed there are questions at the bottom of my slide. That's intentional. I want you to read it. Did you know 2 weeks to 3 months after quitting, your risk of heart attacks begins to drop and your lung function begins to improve? The moment you stop, everything starts to get better. And I mean the moment you stop, everything starts to get better. So that's improving your health. You have more energy. You're going to start feeling like doing more things like that you haven't done before. Keeping up your family health, keeping up with my family health and set a good example. So when you smoke, there's secondhand smoke, there's third-hand smoke. When you're smoking, you're not only affecting yourself, but you're affecting the people around you. So even if you didn't smoke inside the house, you're close, right? You killed the cigarette, it's gone. But now your grandbaby came and ran up to you. You picked up your baby, but you still smell like cigarette on your clothes. That's third-hand smoke. Very, very important. It stays on your clothes. So you're affecting the baby. Baby could pick up respiratory issues like asthma and bronchitis. Secondhand smoke is when the person is around you within a few feet of yourself. So that's why it's important to keep healthy and set a good example. And another thing is, research shows that if you are a smoker in the house, the chances of your children being a smoker is high. Whoever that lives in the house with you, the chances of them smoking is high also. And then feeling good about yourself. Ooh, I quit. This is a milestone. It's like finishing college. Like, ooh, Lord, I did it, finally. School is over, but this is a milestone for yourself. This is, if I could do this, I could do anything, because nicotine is indeed very addictive. And then saving money. Those numbers I said at the very beginning is the truth. Here in Kentucky, $8.03 a pack, that is very expensive. Some states is a lot more expensive, like in New York. However, you guys live here in Kentucky, right? Okay. Have a full sense of taste and smell. So nicotine also suppresses appetite. It also changes the receptors in your mouth. It doesn't encourage you to want to eat. Thus, people actually tend to maintain weight or lose weight while smoking. But what happens is when you stop smoking, everything starts to smell better. Everything starts to taste better. Next slide, please. So I like to have this conversation. Intimacy. When I'm having a class. When I am in a class and have students, I like to, it's kind of like therapy. I am not a licensed therapist. However, for me to help you, I need you to help yourself by looking at yourself and looking at your quit journey, looking at yourself in every way possible. So I ask, what is your action? What is your why? Why did you register for this class? Why are you sitting in this chair? Why are you here? What is your why? And your why is going to lead you through your quit journey. Your why is going to be a constant reminder. It's going to be a constant conviction why I decided to quit. So I always ask, well, why? Why are you going to quit? Well, it's obvious, right? No, it's not. What is your why? And I need you to write it down. This is going to be part of your quit plan. And so that brings up to my next point, quit plan. A quit plan is a contract and a reward. The Bible talks about write it down, make it plain. This is writing it down, make it plain. You write it down, you look at it, you convict yourself. I tell students, take a sticky note, write down your goals, write down why you're deciding to quit. Put it in the mirror, right there, right before you brush your teeth. That way, when you see it, you see yourself in the morning, that's like instant conviction, why I decided to quit, and to remind you to continue to quit throughout your journey. And make sure you have a social support. First day of class, I run through all these because I need to make sure that we're going to end, and we're going to end well. End meaning we're going to quit at a certain time, and we want you to stay without any nicotine products. A social support is very important because you won't be able to do it by yourself. If you quit cold turkey, by all means, you are a very rare jewel. The Lord came down himself and saved you, literally. I strongly encourage, especially folks that started nicotine products as a child under the age of 26, while the brain was still developing, you're going to need a social support. Behavioral health therapy. Contact your primary care. Hey, Dr. So-and-so, Dr. Fanal, I decided to quit today. Dr. Tuckson, I decided to quit today. How can you help me through this journey? Then he might suggest nicotine replacement products. That's NRT. Those are products that help you quit. Those are chemical products, pharmaceutical products. Your doctor might prescribe you medications that will block receptors in the brain. Your doctor might prescribe the patch, the gum, lozenges, or many other nicotine replacement products. And then your friends. Tell your friends what you're doing. There's nothing like a conviction. I thought you said you quit today. Why you have the cigarette? The last program we were in, I had two sisters. And one sister was a smoker, another wasn't. And after the program, she came up to me and she went to the sister and was like, "Can't tell her to quit, tell her to quit." She has to make that decision by herself. But her sister was a constant reminder. She ended up making an appointment the next week to talk to her doctor about quitting. Have friends. And then smoking cessation coach or tobacco cessation coach. I'm a mean teacher. I'm going to encourage you the best way I can. And if I feel I have to take a different route other than the normal route to help you on your journey, I am that teacher. I am not military style, but I strongly believe everybody's not in the same level of learning or teaching or even the same journey of quitting. And so I have to curve the program to you. So if that means I have to push you a little bit more, I will do that. I had in one student, his assignment, his homework was to go, he didn't know how to quit. He said, "I don't know, I don't think I will quit." "So why did you take the class?" "Because my doctor told me to." I said, "Okay, well, since you didn't want to quit, you might as well just go to the funeral home, pick out your casket or your urn, write your letters to your wife and your kids, and just walk away and tell them forget it." He looked at me like, "What?" Came back to class a week later. I didn't know he couldn't go to the funeral home because his son had passed. That was the last time he was at a funeral home picking out a casket for his son. His son was 33 at the time. And so he said, I never went. I couldn't go, but that was convicting enough for me. He is, whoop, whoop. He is a nicotine-free for now 2 years. Acupuncture therapy, hypnotherapy, massage therapy, those are many, I'm telling you, there's many different ways to help you on your journey. I strongly encourage you not to stop on your own. Please take advantage of all these different resources. And then there's Kentucky Tobacco Prevention and Cessation Program, which is a free program provided here by the state. They also provide nicotine replacement therapy. They have 24-hour coaching. They will assist you. You pick up the phone. There's someone on the other line that supports you. Take advantage of that. Next slide, please. And so these are some of the nicotine replacement products. Am I echoing? I feel like I am. Okay, wonderful, thank you. I strongly advocate for this, and this is why I created a whole separate slide for you all, because I want you to understand if you are a nicotine user, it's very important to know what's out there for you, right? What you can use, what are some of the replacement therapies. The very first one is Chantix. I believe it goes by a different name now. It's that receptor blocker in the brain that blocks the receptor of the brain of addiction or nicotine gum. There's the patch, lozenges, and then there's other ways too. There's an app. It's called QuitSmart. QuitSmart is an app you download on your phone. As soon as you're getting a craving or an urge, you can pick up your phone and it will. You can play games. It will distract you for about 5 to 6 minutes. By the way, cravings usually last about that long. It might not even be up to 6 minutes, but it will help you along the way. They provide encouraging quotes, encouraging different little things to help you along your quit journey. Next slide, please. So what to expect? You're going to gain weight. There's no ifs or ands about it. If you decide to quit, you will gain weight. There was a student, he told me he gained 25 pounds from quitting. He had only quit for 6 months. You're going to gain weight. So I encourage to get with a nutritionist. Speak to someone about your eating habits and how it will change. So how will it change, Mildred? Remember I said earlier slide that, it decreases the appetite. Once you stop, everything starts to taste better. What happens is sugar is like the first time a kid had a piece of candy. It will change their life. Same thing will happen to you. Once you quit, everything tastes better. A steak tastes better. A piece of candy tastes better. I mean, way better. So what happens is we tend to eat more. Or we may put down the cigarette and now pick up a food addiction because it tastes so much better. So then what happens is we tend to gain weight. But it's very important to pay attention to what you eat to maintain a good weight. So we strongly encourage chewing carrots, pickles, apples, celery, sugarless gum. I had a gentleman many, many years ago at my old church. He used to chew gum, and I was a head usher, and you know how I feel. You can't be chewing gum in church. I already had my napkin out, ready for him to spit it out. He said, no, Miss Pierre, I really need this. And then later I found he actually uses the gum to help with his nicotine craving. Left him alone. He got a pass. However, hard candy, different ways. I also had another student that uses ginger. Ginger is actually really good. It kills some of the cravings that you get, kind of like the lozenges, which is pretty cool. And then lifestyle change. I encourage, go clean your house. Go clean your car and do a deep clean. Let's start all over. Your clothes that smell like cigarettes, the curtains, the carpet in your house, even in your car. It's time to go do a deep clean inside your car, inside your house. Let's start over. Let's start over. Let's look at ourselves and do a full lifestyle change. And then physical activity. So with physical activity, remember I mentioned earlier that endorphins, nicotine releases endorphins. It makes you feel good. Well, did you know when you exercise, when you go walking, your body releases those same hormones, that feel-good hormone? That's why you see some people, they just live at the gym. You replace exercise with nicotine, it will release the same endorphins. Follow up with your quit plan. The same quit plan from the first day of class. Look back at it. Look to see where you started. It's like looking at a budget. It's like looking at your savings. You look to see where you started. You follow up with yourself to see where you are, and you look at your goals to make sure you're still on track. A quit plan. Write it down, make it plain. And if you make a mistake, we'll try again. If we fall, don't we get back up and try it again, right? I always look at children that are not 1 year old yet, that aren't walking, right? They're the most resilient people in the world. Why? Because they fall, and they fall hard. Some of these kids fall in the back of their head, they fall in the front, but they still try and get back up. If children can do it, why we can't do it? Let's try and get back. And so try again. Try again. Did you know 5 to 15 years after quitting, the risk of having a stroke is reduced to that of a non-tobacco user? Next slide, please. It's possible. It's not impossible, but it is possible. Galatians 5:7, which says, you were running well. Who hindered you that you should not obey the truth? What has prevented you from following God's truth? You. You hindered yourself. We have the tools. You have resources. The ball is in your court. So I'm going to ask you today, who let you hinder you from fighting this addiction and winning? Because it's possible. And then I left a QR code here. You scan it, and it brings you right to Kentucky, ready to quit. Thank you for your time. Ooh, y'all clap for me. I appreciate that.
I think you all seen we've had some pretty good people coming up here talking to y'all so far this morning, and it's going to continue to get better. I promise you. But it's kind of interesting talking about how the cost of things. And we think about healthcare. We sometimes think about physical costs, but there are financial costs associated when we're talking about healthcare and the decisions that we make. And I think that's a great segue for us into our next speaker, who's going to be Ms. Yolanda Hildenbrand, who is an oncology social worker with Norton Cancer Institute right here in Louisville. She's going to give us a presentation on financial health literacy. Ms. Hildenbrand, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? All right. Oh, they got it up there. So let me take this off. Maybe. Okay, there we go. So thank you first for having me. My name is Yolanda Hildenbrand. I am an oncology social worker and therapist for Norton Cancer Institute. So when I was asked to speak, I was excited because this is my specialty and my passion. Today, I'm going to talk about financial literacy to assist with financial toxicity. Now, when they asked me to speak on financial literacy. However, I added the financial toxicity in with it because you can't speak on financial literacy without speaking on financial toxicity. I have to give credit to my coworkers because we do a lot of presentations related to cancer, especially in the community. So my coworkers that assisted with this is Allison Krebs and Beth Payne. All are licensed clinical social workers or therapists. Next slide, please. So to touch on why I'm here is, what is financial literacy? So financial literacy is understanding and managing money. In this situation, it's financial literacy related to health care, which is including lung cancer, which is what we're talking about here today. For financial literacy, you have to understand the cost of health care, you have to understand what's covered, and you have to understand what's not covered. Paying medical bills, prescriptions on time are all a part of financial literacy. Making informed decisions are part of financial literacy. Budgeting, saving, and planning for health care, which a lot of us don't do. We don't know about it until we're at that point. Understanding your insurance coverage and savings account. I can't say this enough. You have to know what you have so that way you know what to do with it when it's time. Next slide, please. So, positive and negative effects for healthcare literacy. better understanding of outcomes, including mental health, which was already touched upon. It reduces stress to know about your financial literacy, and it better utilizes your health care for yourself and for your insurance company. Negative impacts of not having the health literacy. Care is delayed or not started, and this happens daily where I work. People won't start treatment because they don't know what they have to pay, how much they have to pay, or if they can afford what they're going to have to pay. Medication not affordable, so patients ration what they're going to take. And with that, what I mean is you may be taking blood pressure medication, you may have to take oral chemo medication. You have to decide which is the most important. And a lot of times it's the blood pressure medication because they're worried about the immediate right now. Next slide, please. So, what is financial toxicity? Basically, in a nutshell, what it is falling out, right? Falling out financially when it comes to your health. So, financial toxicity describes objective and subjective measures for financial strain that cancer patients make. It includes financial distress, financial hardship, burden, and economic hardship. The facts about this is, and I'm going to take it back to 1970. In 1970, cancer was 74.6 billion then. That was high then. In 2000, it was 1.4 trillion, okay? And then in 2015, it was 3.3 trillion. So we're at 2024 now. The average out-of-pocket in 2010 was $1,800. In 2020, it's $2,900. That's a lot. I work in healthcare. That's a lot. You know, even myself, if I didn't have insurance and some of the extras that I get from Norton's, I wouldn't be able to afford it. So Americans with cancer experience higher out-of-pocket than any other chronic illness. Commercial insurers in the United States are shifting medical costs more to the patient by creating higher premiums for us, higher deductibles, higher co-insurance, and higher co-payment. Next slide, please. So, I abbreviated financial toxicity, and it's just FT now. But socio-demographic risk factors. The younger you are, the higher your increase of not being able to manage the financial part of lung cancer. The younger you are, the more likely you're not eligible for Medicare to help with lung cancer. And then adult survivors of cancer, meaning those that had cancer as a child, moving up, adult survivors, have a hard physical, emotional, and mental development as it relates to the toxicity or the financial toxicity. With the adult survivors going back into cancer, it's more of a mental weight, I want to say, okay, because they're not able to maintain employment. They have a difficult time maintaining social relationships, and it affects the mental development. So another risk factor is income. Many people think, well, the more income you make, the easier it's going to be to afford cancer, and that's not true. Race and ethnicity. So cancer outcomes, and it's involving a study of 3,242 lung and colorectal survivors that were African American with an increased self-reported economic burden after researchers adjusted for other socio-demographic clinical factors. Populations surveys of 3,000 women with breast cancer showed that Spanish-speaking women were at a greater risk of financial decline to breast cancer compared to white women, whereas English-speaking Latina and African-American women did not share this increased risk. interesting because we all believe that we struggle more. And I'm here to tell you that we don't. Not as much as we have, but we're on it. So geographical location. A lot of times people believe that based on where you live, it determines your outcomes. It determines whether or not you're going to participate in treatment. And it does. It does. Employment. How does cancer affect employment? If you're off work, if you're too tired and have difficulty going back to work, your income goes down. If you don't have income, your bills don't get paid. If you don't pay your bills, that increases the stress, the anxiety, and sometimes causes people to no longer complete that cancer regimen. So, health insurance. Uninsured and underinsured presence of health insurance does not completely shield patients from a higher level of out-of-pocket spending in our healthcare services. Next slide, please. So, additional risk. Disease and treatments-related risk factors. Advanced stages of your cancer, the cancer requiring chemo or radiation, and those with comorbidities. So all this affects the financial literacy, financial toxicity. Individual patient household risk factors. So if the patient makes most of the money, so if I'm the head of the household in my house and I'm the money maker, the rest of the family, as far as myself, is going to wonder how are we going to be able to make the bills? How are we going to be able to pay the mortgage, pay the car payments, pay the tuition, all these things? These are all reasons that people either don't do the cancer treatment or stop doing the cancer treatment. So again, this is part of the financial literacy we'll talk about. So how much the rest of the household have in income? If you're in my house, I go out, my husband go out, we're done, because my kids don't. They think they work, but they don't. You know, anthropology is not a real job. How much debt and assets patients have before diagnosis? If you're already in debt and you add cancer to it, that's going to increase your debt, again, increase your stress, and it's going to determine your willingness for cancer treatment. Costs related to cancer and type of disease. So advanced stage, cancer that's come back, which is recurrent, poor prognosis, more than one type of cancer, and chronic disease in addition to cancer. So if patients have health insurance and disability benefits and what they cover, next slide, please. So if they have those things and what they cover, they feel that they're a little safer, but at the same time, they're not. So measuring the problem. This here is research that we've read. So I'm briefly going to go over it, but not really. So there is a comprehensive score for financial toxicity. It's used to assess U.S. cancer patients and has been used also in Japan. It measures the financial toxicity with correlation to the health-related quality of life. There are other qualitative studies here in the United States and also internationally, but at this point, there's not enough research on financial toxicity or financial literacy at that point, so the numbers are skewed. They were stating that biases include high non-response rates and reverse causality. Next slide, please. So, financial toxicity consequences, okay? So if you're not on it, these are things that can happen. So access and adherence to treatment. Patients may not take their medication as directed because they want to save money. Ration out their medications, as I said in previous slides. At the highest levels of copay, patients become less likely to take cancer-related medications on a daily basis. And I deal with this, I deal with it every day. You know, and patients will tell me I couldn't afford that. So instead of taking my cancer pills 7 days a week like I'm supposed to, I'm going to take it 3. So they're doing this because they can't afford the medication. So quality of life and perceived quality of care. Patients might experience lower quality of life, including poor physical and mental health, being unsatisfied with social activities and relationships, and worried about reoccurrence. Study of lung and colorectal patients with financial toxicity report increased symptom burden, increased pain, and lower quality of life than those with 12 months of financial reserves. So this is what happens when you find out you're diagnosed with lung cancer. You're already struggling to pay the bills. Now you have the stress of trying to figure out where you're going to get more money. What is it? They say you can't rob Peter to pay Paul, or is that what it is? Okay, because I always mess those up. But the whole point, now you're worried about that. How am I going to pay for it? How am I going to take care of the family? How are we going to eat? Am I going to be able to keep my job? All this increases physical symptoms. It increases stress. It increases issues actually within the family unit. Next slide, please. So, with financial toxicity and decreased financial literacy, this is what can happen: financial debt and bankruptcy. So, there was a study that 4,719 survivors reported that of that group amount, 63% of them were worried about paying large bills, 33% of them went into debt, and 3.1% of those patients filed for bankruptcy. And then the last 39% had to find other financial ways or financial means and sacrifices due to their cancer. So cancer survivors are 2.7 times more likely to file for bankruptcy than individuals without cancer. And that's very interesting. No one knew that. I didn't know that until we started working on this slide. 62% of bankruptcies in the United States are results from medical debt. 78% of those people had insurance. So how crazy is that? You have health insurance, you can't pay your bills, you have to file for bankruptcy. 78% is a large amount. So what's the impact that decreased financial literacy and financial toxicity have on the caregivers? Because caregivers were discussed earlier. So in a study of over 5,000 cancer patients whose caregivers were friends, family, 25% report that the caregivers made significant employment changes. That means they had to cut their hours to take care of the patient. They had to cut their hours to bring the patient to and from treatment. When the patient's sick, they had to take days off. So everyone in the home is affected by this. So survival. One retrospective cohort study of cancer patients who filed bankruptcy compared to those who did not file bankruptcy was associated with a risk of mortality. So, and the highest were those with prostate cancer and colorectal cancer. I know we're talking about lung cancer, but I felt I needed to put that in here. So basically, not getting treatment, being worried about it, the mental strain is part of their survival rate. Next slide, please. So what are interventions we can use to reduce financial toxicity and increase financial literacy? So treating the financial toxicity needs to move to a place where it's part of treatment for the patients. So instead of patients just being referred to a financial counselor or a social worker, we feel that it should be a part of as soon as you come on, not a part till you're already gone down the hill. Half the time when I get patient referrals, it's already almost too late. So I'm trying to help get them out of a hole, per se. So the ways to reduce the financial toxicity and increase financial literacy is to let patients know what's available to them. First thing, we have financial navigators. As soon as you start with Norton Healthcare, you should be assigned a financial nurse navigator. What she does is she assesses you, tells you about everything that we have to offer, and if needed, does a referral for me, the social worker. it's important to have financial literacy, know the prices and costs of cancer. People don't know that this is available to you. You can call your insurance and get this information. If you come to Norton Healthcare can get this information for you also. Now, I'm not telling you it's going to be exact. We're telling you a roundabout, okay? And value-based pricing, which is also Norton Healthcare, if you're paying cash, which I know people aren't, that's what we're talking about. There's value price basing for that. Another thing is health insurance reform, but this is something we all have to do in Frankfurt. We have to go, we have to lobby, we have to advocate. And then there is a psychosocial intervention, which would be me again, the social worker and the therapist. Next slide, please. So Ashley already talked about the mental health part, but I'm gonna just touch on it again because financial literacy and financial toxicity do have an impact on your mental. So a patient's psychological response to treatments, financial burden associated with cancer diagnosis is referred to as stress, distress, or worry. According to the AOSW, which is the Association of Oncology Social Workers, which I am a part of, by the way, 66% of cancer patients with major financial challenges experience depression or anxiety. A study that looked at the effort of financial burden on physical and mental health in cancer survivor patients found that survivors with financial burden had 1.95 times higher odds of depression or depressed mood. Survivors reporting at least 3 financial problems had 3.41 times higher odds of depressed mood, and so forth. Next slide, please. So the impact of financial toxicity, financial literacy on lung cancer patients. When working with people who are newly diagnosed with cancer, behavioral clinicians often help their clients with multiple concrete clinical tasks. So that would be facilitating the process because they're shocked from the initial diagnosis, assessing outside resources, which is something I do. So if we don't have it at Norton Healthcare, I'm going to try to find it for you somewhere else. Communication with friends, family, and doctors, which is important. That is an important part of financial literacy, is asking questions. A lot of times patients don't ask questions. You come there, they give you a lot of information, and you leave and go home and think about it. What I ask patients to do is each visit, bring a tablet or some paper and pen, write your questions down that you have before, write questions after for the next time, and don't let the doctors leave out until your questions are answered. So addressing existential and spiritual concerns. When you're dealing with cancer, the toxicity, the decreased financial literacy, I stress to patients, they're spiritual. It's extremely important to help patients get through this, extremely important. Engaging or expanding social support networks. I tell patients, join groups. And people don't understand why. I say join groups because when you're in these groups, sometimes you learn things you don't know. People will tell you, oh, I got $15,000 for this medical treatment from this place. You know, and when people hear what you got, they want it too. So groups are really good at this. Another mental health impact is mourning the loss of healthy self. People get upset because cancer changes their body. As they're changing the body, it's changing the mental, it's changing everything. And it is due to the financial toxicity or the decreased financial literacy. People don't feel like themselves anymore, and that's partly of going into that depression. Okay. So financial hardship, however, it may take more difficult. It may make it more difficult for clients to mobilize the physical and mental energy needed to start the coping process. Next slide. So if someone's struggling with basic socioeconomic needs, how can they begin to engage in the coping process? How do they start make sense of their experience? Cancer represents an existential threat, a reminder of our mortality, financial toxicity, may compound that threat. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's important in lung cancer treatment because these are all things that we need to survive. Okay, starting on the bottom, we go bottom up. The physiological needs, the safety needs, belonging and love needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization. What we're talking about today is going to be the safety needs, which includes the financial security and stability. Are y'all familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Yes? Thank you. Next slide, please. So psychosocial interventions that can help with financial literacy, financial toxicity. First thing is going to be problem solving. So when you find out that you have cancer, lung cancer, find someone that can help you. Start thinking of, how can I pay for this? What do I have? What's the least mental strain on me? I like to give that back to the patients because it gives them hope, it gives them control of their situation. It also builds a sense of self-efficacy, and it lets them know they're capable of handling their illness, and they use their inner and outer strengths to do so. I already spoke about the family and group support, going to different, like Norton has a lot of different groups, going to the groups, going to the educational seminars that we have, going on Facebook, believe it or not, Facebook group. People on Facebook, they give you a lot of information, a lot of resources to use. And doing these things help reduce the feeling of isolation, and it provides a forum for information exchange and resource sharing. Next slide. So how do cancer centers help with financial toxicity? So this, I'm going to base it on what I'm doing and where I work, but I'm sure the other local hospitals here are the same because I talk with the other social workers. So the first thing, I'm on the behavioral oncology team. So as I said, Norton gets a 2-for-1 for me. I'm a therapist for them, and I'm also a social worker, and I do resources. So utilizing interventions to identify patients' financial stress and manage the impact of mental health. That would be me, and that would be a financial counselor. Financial counselors at Norton Healthcare are the ones that, let's say you don't have insurance, or you don't have enough of insurance. They try to help you qualify for some programs that are at Norton's. There's the nurses, the nurse practitioner, and the MDs. If you know someone that has cancer, or if you yourself have cancer, and you don't know what to do, where to go, when you see your doctor, ask for them to put a referral in for social work. And then we can get started to try to ease things for you, help you with the financial literacy of it, and decrease your toxicity. So as far as social workers in case management role, which again is me, what we do is we connect patients with financial assistance, resources, help with household and medical bills. People don't know that we help you pay your bills. We help you pay your mortgage. We might help you pay your car. You can't keep your utilities on because you're going through treatment. We found ways to get all this done for you. And we also educate you as it relates to financial. For instance, not that I want anyone to be here, but let's say you do have lung cancer. You caught it late. You're stage 3. You can't work. You have no money coming in. A lot of people don't know that the Social Security disability, they have a program for cancer patients, and this particular program, it pays you. So you're getting your Social Security disability because you're a cancer patient, stage 3. So that's income coming in for you, right? Stage 4 also, and sometimes stage 2. But again, link up with the social worker and they'd be able to help you out on this. So other things that we do and that Baptist does and U of L does is we help with food. So sometimes during treatment, you don't have food, you can't cook food, you don't know where it's going to come from. So we have food bags. We have programs that have food delivered to your house. And also gas. So people say, I don't have any money coming in. To come to treatment is going to be a financial burden in itself. I don't know how I'm going to get there. So what we're going to do is we're going to either get you here because we have a grant that does that, or we're going to give you gas cards for either you or someone you know to bring you to your treatments. So financial counselors, what they'll do is they assist with authorization for IV and oral chemo treatments. That's an expensive part of cancer treatment. That's what patients worry about more. So they try to find ways to decrease that financial strain or zero it out altogether. Norton also has a financial assistance application, which people don't know about. It is income-based, so I'm going to say that. Qualifying for that means they zero out your bill. And people don't know that, and a lot of people don't know that because when they hear they have cancer, they're like, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do. I'm not going to afford it, so they stop. So if you know anyone, again, that has cancer, they need help, they have questions, send them to a social worker at any of these 3 hospitals, Norton, U of L, or Baptist. Now, another important part that people don't know is the physician's secretary. She's the person that helps with the long-term disability, short-term disability, and FMLA paperwork that patients need when they're going to take time off. Next slide, please. So again, I kind of already touched on what we do, but when it comes to financial literacy part of it, the way Norton Cancer Institute can help, the way I would help, is say you don't have insurance. You don't know what to do. We're going to apply for Medicaid. If you don't qualify for Medicaid, we're going to apply for what I call the Obamacare. If you don't qualify for the Obamacare, we're going to go through and see what we can get you privately, but we're going to do what we can to try to get you some insurance. Norton has, like I said, various programs that can help. I have phone numbers up here that patients can call. And then, like I said, to estimate the cost, because some people are like, I want to know how much it's going to cost up front, or I'm not going to do it. I have our phone number on there again. The other hospitals also have this, so this is not specific to Norton Healthcare. And then we have a foundation. And what that foundation does is they specifically raise money for cancer. So we have a lot of money to help cancer patients, and we use up that money to help cancer patients. Next slide, please. So this is a flow chart. You didn't really need it, but I put it in here because I'm nerdy like that. So for instance, I say people worry about chemotherapy. It's expensive. They worry about medications. So I have a flow chart of how things work with us. So let's say you have a chemo drug that you need. You say yes. It's going to be IV. It tells you exactly who you need to contact for these things. This, to me, is good for patients because patients hate to get the runaround on things because you may call me and I'm like, oh, no, I don't do the chemo. That's the financial counselor. You need to call the financial counselors. So I like for them to add this in for patients so then that way they have a good start of knowing who they need to call. So next slide, please. So common referrals I get, and I've already gone through this. The referrals I get are inability to pay rent, mortgage, gas, electric, and water or other bills, lack of food, unemployment, how to apply for SSDI, which is Social Security Disability Insurance. Current insurance is not enough coverage, difficulty paying medical bills, lack of transportation, can't afford housing, don't know how they're going to afford home care. So other things that we have are, like I said, a lot of community organizations we reach out to. So the last one, people are like, they get shocked. I'm too tired to clean my house because I have lung cancer, but I feel bad sitting in a dirty house. Okay, let me see if I can find somebody to come to your house and clean it for you. They just get like, they don't believe it. So next slide, please. Here's just the resources I've used, so if you want to take a picture or if you want this later, I'll be happy to give it to you. But it's just some resources that the average person can use starting out. I've talked about these throughout the slide already. And then cancer triage is a really good one. So no matter where you're going, they have a plethora of resources online. They have a plethora of grants online also. Next slide. Okay, you can go through the next one. I'm not going to have time. Next slide. Okay, so one other thing, because I wrote notes on here, but then I used that, I wanted to say is a lot of people have insurance and they don't know what they have. One thing that I have that I didn't realize it's critical care insurance. So if you are applying or you're renewing your insurance, that's something that I would think about getting, because critical care insurance gives you a big one time that year payment. I think mine's like $10,000. But $10,000 helps when you're trying to make cancer a little cheaper. So know what you have and add to it. So that means you may need to check with your benefits providers just to see what you have. Again, this information, if you don't have cancer, but you know someone that does, give them this information. I'm going to leave my card, so I don't mind talking to anyone, even if you're going to our competitor. I just want to make sure everybody has what they need to be educated on cancer and educated on cancer resources. Thank you. You can put this back over.
Thank you. Why don't you, hang tough, 'cause we're going to do the panel. Come on back in there. Thank you very much. Yeah. I've got to, I got to tell you, in 35 plus years of being a surgeon, mostly on cancer patients, I have not heard some of that information that you mentioned. And so that's good. Ashley, come on up here. We're going to, yes, and Dr. Fano, please, thank you for coming. I didn't realize you were able to make it back. I'm going to bring a chair up. We've, one more chair. The gentleman that just joined us is Dr. Eric Flano. Dr. Flano spoke yesterday. And I want him to, I'm going to start off with a little question and answer session for right now. If you have a question, please just raise your hand, and Mr. Stan Watson will come around to, I see we don't get the fancy clothes anymore, huh? So now we get the traveling clothes now. You see how it goes? She comes up here, does her fancy presentation, now we get the traveling clothes. All right, Ms. Mildred Pierre. But anyway, if you have a question, make sure you just write it down, or just raise your hand, and Mr. Watson will come around to you. But Dr. Flano, would you kind of go over a couple of things that to bring us up? When we're talking about lung cancer, I understand that there are really two different types, and then there's staging. So what are those types, and what does staging mean?
So when you think about the types, just keep in mind that lung cancer just develops, one cell goes rogue, and it just starts developing till it starts impacting other parts of the body. There's two types that develop out of that. There's some where the cells that are abnormal are very small, they grow very fast, and they spread very fast, and that is, doctors are not good at naming things, so it's small cell lung cancer. It has a more aggressive course, and it gets a little bit harder to treat. So when we find somebody that has that, we move very fast on trying to get them through the treatment, the treatment process. The other one, because the cells are not small, they're larger, we call it non-small cell lung cancer. Okay, and then you can hear different names, squamous, adeno, but it's just that general category where the cells are not small. So they're a little bit slower to grow. They spread a little bit slower. There's different options for treating each variation of that, whether it's surgery, chemotherapy, or radiation therapy. Because the small cell one spreads so fast, surgery is usually not an option. So we describe it as being limited stage, where it's only in the lungs, or extensive stage, where it's spread outside of the lungs. For the non-small cell, it's either localized in the lungs, it might be regional in the lungs and some lymph nodes, or it might have spread distant. And those are the three major easiest ways of staging it.
So want to go to the financial literacy bit. If I understand correctly, when I say bit, I mean that was the most succinct presentation on cost of care. But when we talk about patients who have, say, stage 1 early lung cancer, the cost can be anywhere from about $50,000 top end. When we talk about a person with stage 4 disease, we're talking about upwards of $200,000 or more in order to try to treat the disease. Now, that's the cost of treatment, but there are costs that go along with that person after the fact. Some of the things you were talking about as far as financial health literacy, does that get into those rehabilitative care that the patient may need for rehabilitation services and things like that?
It does. It gets into all of it, per se. Insurance is a major component of it. So the most important thing is to have the insurance. After having the insurance, then the backup or the subsidies to the co-pays and the co-insurances, because that's what really gets people. So what we're really doing with that is we're finding ways. So it's important for patients, as soon as they know that they have cancer, especially lung cancer, is to immediately reach out so that we can start a game plan and we can start looking into different resources and grants nationwide. We don't stop just here in Kentucky. We go nationwide with the grants. Depending on when you tell us, some of them 15th of the month, some 1st of the month, some of them every 3 months. But if we know your cancer, we know your staging, we know your insurance, then that way we can help. So I don't want to say that first stage is not as important, because it is, but all stages are the stages that we help you with. Now, first stage is a little bit less harsh as far as financially,
Right.
but again, once we get to like the lower stages, it's harder to pull people in, because at that point they don't want to accumulate any more debt, and that's the stages where they sometimes want to let it go.
Okay. Dr. Flano, so if it costs about $50,000 to treat even an early stage cancer, how much does it cost to treat a person who wants to get screening? What does it cost them screening?
For the screening? Screening averages between, like our hospital, we have assistance programs, and there's a lot of assistance programs. So if you're underinsured or not insured, you can still get screened at risk, and our hospital has negotiated that they're only charged like $99, and that's once a year. I think the average cost might be somewhere around $200 or so if you're uninsured.
But aren't as a result of the Affordable Care Act, cancer screening for lung cancer, one of those that's no charge to the patient?
Yeah, it's not charged. It's a screening effort, so you shouldn't have to come out of pocket. The only way you would is if you have no coverage at all, and even then, a lot of healthcare systems, because they get county taxes, county tax money for that, they've come up with a program where the cost should be minimal.
And who is eligible for lung cancer screening?
So lung cancer screening, we looked for the people that we've identified as being high risk. And by high risk, that means that they're somewhere between the ages of 50 and 80 years old, okay? And that they've smoked any time within the past 15 years, okay? Those are the two easy criteria. The other criteria is that you've smoked enough to meet the qualifications, which is what we call pack years. So, for example, if you smoked 1 pack a day for 20 years, that's a 20 pack year history. If you smoke 20 pack years or above, then you would qualify. And it could be you smoke, 2 packs a day for 10 years. That's a 20 pack year. If you reach those criteria between the ages of 50 and 80, you smoked any time within the past 15 years, and you're over 20 pack year history, then you would qualify for screening.
All right. Thank you very much. Stan.
And so I have a question from the audience from yesterday, and it's kind of great segue. This person said they came to get more information on screening and to see if Medicare would pay for screening. So I just wanted to get that question answered for them.
Yeah. Once again, we were discussing that a little while ago. Yes, it is covered. It's a screening effort, just like prostate cancer, breast cancer screening is covered, so it is covered.
And I think the most important part of that is this. When we talk about the cost of care, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about just financial costs. I'm not talking about the impact on families, friends, and otherwise. We're talking about just financial. To get screened for lung cancer, hey, that costs nothing. If we can find the disease early and it's just a surgical treatment, the cost is somewhere between $10,000 to $50,000. If it is advanced, you're talking upwards of $200,000 or more. So you can see in terms of if we just think in terms of dollars and cents, and we're going to come back to dollars and cents and smoking in a moment. Yes, Dan, we have a question. Yes.
Yes, first of all, wonderful presentations by all the presenters. But I didn't hear anything about vaping. And I was wondering, is vaping considered a treatment, or is that a problem? Because I have a son, and he's got 2 beautiful grandchildren, and his wife and I are just trying to get him off this vaping thing.
Well, I'm going to, number one, encourage you to go back and look at session 1 from yesterday. We missed you yesterday, by the way, Mike. Anyway, so we talked, that was one of the things that we talked about. However, the guy that gave us, who is the public enemy number 1 from the vaping industry, is with us, Dr. Flano, and he'll answer that question again. But do go back and look at, it's online, you can stream it. I really, and joking aside, it was good, but we can get an answer for you on that right now.
Yeah, no, it's not good. Okay, it was brought out and says, oh, okay, well, you vape and it'll help you stop smoking. It really doesn't help you stop smoking. So I try to keep it short. The thing that keeps people smoking is the nicotine, right? That's the addictive part of it. And I heard it mentioned earlier, you know, it's nicotine. Only 2 things more addictive are cocaine and heroin, right? But it's legal. It's the other 4,000 chemicals that are inside of this other stuff that you're inhaling that's triggering the cancer to develop. But nonetheless, when you're replacing this vaping, which one of these pods may have the equivalent of a pack to 2 packs of cigarette in just one of those vaping pods. And you've seen the people, they inhale and these big plumes of smoke. That's a lot of nicotine, right? And that's a lot of addiction. And what happens is those pods become expensive and people just go back to cigarettes. The problem doesn't help, and it really doesn't help quit. It hasn't been shown to help anybody quit.
But it also add to it too is there's a thing called EVALI, which is e-cigarette or vaping produced associated lung disease. So not only do you have the fact that people are taking in all of the carcinogens, but there are other damage that's being done to the lungs that we haven't even talked about, and just as serious. And we're talking about in young people. I believe you get a lot of scarring and things like that.
You can get a lot of inflammation, a lot of scarring, difficulty breathing. It's a whole different disease, and I didn't want to go too deep into it because that's a whole hour talk. But yes, it does damage the lungs in different ways. Though now its relationship to cancer, we're not sure yet because vaping is still sort of a new thing. You know, tobacco's been around for a long time, and we've seen where that has a direct link to the development of cancer. We're not sure yet, but we know that there is ongoing damage from vaping, and we expect to be able to tell whether or not it's linked to cancer later in the future.
So the short answer about vaping is it is not innocuous. It is not innocuous. Yes, Mr. Watson. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning.
Take your time.
I have more so a comment. Ms. Yolanda, I believe that you and I have spoken over the phone. I am Dr. Cute's patient. And my comment is that I was just recently diagnosed, not with lung cancer, but with metastatic breast cancer. And in all of the screening, I initially went for an ultrasound. Had to pay $100 minimum out of pocket for that. The next day I had to go for a CT. They didn't ask me for any money then. Then I had to go for an MRI a couple of weeks later. They didn't ask for any money then. However, when I went for the biopsy, they told me the minimum I would have to pay was $200. So when I got there for the biopsy, I asked the gentleman, I said, well, what do you do for people who don't have the money? He said, unfortunately, we can't perform the biopsy unless it's life or death. And I thought, To myself, I would think that cancer would fall within that category. But in any event, I had it. A week later, I had to go for a PET scan. Being proactive, I told them ahead of time, I'm not able to give you the minimum 200, but I can give you 100. The lady said, we'll put a note in the chart. I don't know if it will work, but we'll see. I go for the PET scan. I tell the lady I don't have the 1,500 that she was asking for. So if I don't have 1,500, I don't have 200. I said, I let them know ahead of time. She was so dismissive. They weren't going to perform the PET scan if I had not found that $200. I called my boss who works for, he does, I'm sorry to be taking so long. It's just so distressing. I called my boss who does legal work for Norton, and I could hear the frustration in his voice. And he says to me, go ahead and get the PET scan, pay with the card. I will give you the money back. But I found the 200. It made me feel like this is becoming too expensive to even try to fight. I know that there's no cure, but I want to still be able to have some quality of life. And when you have that financial strain, it adds to your stress level, and stress is not good for anyone, but it is especially not good for someone who's trying to deal with a serious illness.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. First off, I'll say after Yolanda speaks, give her a chance. Perhaps after today's session, can you sit with her so you can have a more private discussion about the more particulars about it? So I'll let you speak in generalities, but talk with her about her specifics later on today.
So thank you for sharing. And this is the part that I said it's important to know the various resources. Not everybody knows the resources that we have. So like you said, after this, we'll get together and we'll talk about the resources, and hopefully that'll take some of the stress off. So we'll link up.
How many of you are familiar with the term called universal health care? It's something that is oftentimes proposed here in the United States, that we have universal health insurance. What it is thing, right now we have a fee-for-service or variation on the fee-for-service. We do get into Medicare and Medicaid, which we'll get some discussions about that as far as, and also managed Medicaid. But universal health insurance is a system very similar to what's going on in Canada, in England, also in places like Singapore and a few other countries where we don't have this discussion. Health care is covered for us. It has been demonized in many, many ways, but when you talk to the people under those systems, they're really very happy about what they have. So next time you go, and I mentioned it only because when you go to the ballot box or you have a chance to talk to your councilman, your state representative, your representative to Congress, ask them where do they stand on universal health care or even expanding Medicare to all. And if they can't tell you they're a strong proponent of it, they're telling you they really don't care about your health. Because your situation is not that unique, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Ms. Hildebrand has to deal with that all too often. So don't you go anywhere so she can talk to you, okay? Otherwise, she'll fuss at me. So please, don't go nowhere. I want to ask a question, though. Ashley, where is the line between when someone has, we think they have things about suicide, particularly I want to talk about suicide, because a lot of people with advanced diseases are considering suicide, plus or minuses associated with that. But when is it interfering and I'm intruding into a person's personal space versus intervention where I need to act here? Because some of us are a little reticent, well, that's a personal matter for them. Tell me.
Well, what I'll say is it's not a personal matter because, we live in a community amongst people, right? These are our families, these are our friends. And if just like you have a disease process that I want you to get treatment for and get help for, it's the same thing for your mental health. I would say the biggest thing that we need to do is you're not looking at it from a perspective of somebody stepping in and overtaking and trying to take over your life. We need to look at it as a perspective as this person is trying to help me, they're trying to assist me, right? And so the only time that you would feel like you're overstepping your bounds is personally if this person's life is in danger. If you're endangering somebody else's life, a child, a vulnerable adult, or even yourself, then that's when privacy will be broken, right? Because I need to make sure that you are safe right here and there in that moment. And if I cannot guarantee your safety, then yes, I will break your privacy as a provider to get you some assistance. So in that sense, yes. Other than that, talking with you, going through things, if you have a plan in place and access to means to actually harm yourself, yes, we have to take that seriously and we have to talk about that. And that could talk about hospitalization, it can talk about treatment, other things. We may need to look into medications, therapy, different things to get you some assistance, right? Because the goal is for you to remain here. The goal is for you to be here. The goal is for you to be engaged, right? And so we have to continue and have that conversation with you, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not negative or wrong for you to have these thoughts, but if you have a plan in place and the likelihood of you're harming yourself, then yes, that's when we have to intervene and step in to get you some assistance.
Yeah, but what if the case is, my friend says, look, don't talk to me about this, or I don't want to be your friend, I don't want you to talk to me anymore. But you are really concerned about the individual. Do you just go ahead and risk the friendship and do it, or risk it?
Risk it.
That's what I want
Ask
to
the
hear.
question. Intervene, right? You know, how many times have someone given us advice or said something to us and we might not needed it right now, but it came to us later? I remember when that person had that conversation. I remember when that situation came up. So I care more about you in the long term than I care about you being mad at me right now or you not liking me or whatever. Take the risk, take the chance, ask the question, and make the intervention, right? Person may be mad at you today, 48 hours later, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you said something to me. I couldn't see what you saw to keep me here.
And we're calling these training workshops because we talked about in the beginning, my advocacy, so that those of us who are here can go out and talk to people, be more comfortable. And I think this is one of the things we have to be more comfortable, recognizing someone is a risk, and then intervene. Yes, Stan, you had something.
Yeah, just this last question before we wrap up for Ms. Hildebrand. I had a conversation earlier about open enrollment and especially about Medicare Advantage plans. If she could expound on that just a little bit, in a short sentence, maybe a paragraph about these plans that are coming out right now since it's open enrollment for Medicare patients.
So I'm going to disappoint you right now because I do not participate in the open enrollment for Medicare, so I'm not real knowledgeable of that.
Okay.
So let us be clear then. So we have Medicaid, which it covers individuals who are under poverty line, under the age of 65. We have Medicare, which is those above 65 unless certain other illnesses are present. Then within Medicare, there's the standard Medicare, which you can pay and you can go anywhere and see anybody that you want to see when you want to see them. Then there's something called Medicare Advantage. You've seen the celebrities on the commercials, Joe Namath and a few other people,
Right.
and they talk about the virtues of Medicare Advantage, and it really has some advantages. But what it is you're locked into a plan in which you will go to that plan's physicians and or facilities. So if you wanted to say go to the Norton Cancer Institute, who conveniently calls themselves NCI to confuse himself with the National Cancer Institute, no, I'm just just teasing. No, but if you want to go to, because you want to be involved with Ms. Hildebrand, but you want to see somebody at Baptist, well, if your plan says you only go in the Norton, guess what? You only go in the Norton.
You got a network.
And so that is the thing that we have to watch out for. But there are the costs are less if you go to a Medicare Advantage plan, but your individual options are also compromised. So that is the big difference between the big thing for all of us as we look at these things. How do we decide which one in which we're going to go with? It does kind of to get that point. I want to ask a question when we talk about smoking cessation. Okay, we'll come to you in a moment. So can I come to my friends and say, hey, look, you are smoking entirely too much. You need to stop smoking. I know as a physician, I've sometimes gone into a patient's room, and they come into my exam room, and the first thing that hits me is the woof of cigarette smoke, and they don't have a cigarette on their hand. And I must admit, flippantly, I will say, the number one problem we got is you smoke too much. Because if I'm telling you you're a big-time smoker, and I'm just walking in the room. So how do you what is the big thing, the big stick that gets people to finally decide that I'm going to stop smoking? Is it me coming up telling them? Is it the family member that's telling them to do it? Is Ashley saying, I'm come over and talk to you to death about something? Is that what's going to do it?
It's a community. One gentleman, I think I mentioned this, he only came to my class because the doctor told him to. But his doctor was annoyed. Like, why do you keep coming back if you're going to continue to smoke? Like, we're wasting our time. You're paying me, and we're just looking at each other. You have all these health issues, and you are not quitting. Why do you keep coming back? Clearly, you don't want to live. Clearly, you don't care about yourself. That convicting story is how he enrolled into a tobacco cessation class. Okay. So strong, stern conversations, convicting conversations, I believe truly helps.
Thank you very much. We're going to have one more question. After this question, then we're going to have the response, and then each one of our panel members is going to give us that take-home point that we should have, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
And thank you for coming back for today's session.
Yes, sir, and thank you for the presentation. Very informative. Smoking a very long time. And to piggyback off of just what you just said, coming to your office and having a conviction comes, it's not a matter of not wanting to. It's absolutely can't. I have children. I have underlying conditions. I think I've started when I was 9. I was in a household of smokers. Everyone smoked. From my mother down, they all quit cold turkey. I have no real desire to quit smoking. But I want to. I know that I should. I'm probably borderline COPD. They have me on inhalers. Is there a help available for the ones that are stuck in the middle? Like, I know that I should, but it's a part of my routine. I have coffee in the morning. I have to have my black and milk. Like, it's a part of my routine. Where's the help for those that want to but can't?
Anything's possible. We in church, right? God is so good. Anything is possible. Your will. You said just now that you want to. So let's stick on that. We're going to start. That's a seed. The more you do something about it, you're going to water that plant. Have a conversation with your primary. Let's get on some medication. Let's try something similar to Chantix that'll block some of the receptors that's craving, right? Let's get on some nicotine replacement products. Patch, gum, lozenge. You could do the gum and the patch together. You could switch them up. Enroll in a tobacco cessation program, whether it's online or in person. You fight the addiction by fighting back. You don't fight the addiction just by saying, I want to, but I can't. No, I rebuke that. We're going to quit. We're going to quit together. So how are we going to do it? We're going to start changing the way we talk. We're going to start cleaning up our house. We're going to go in and call our primary and make appointments and figure out how we can make a plan to quit. Then we're going to talk to our family and our friends. Listen, I'm trying to quit. I need your help. I can't do this by myself.
So after today's session, you're going to sit down with Mildred for a moment. Now, I want to remind everybody, please fill out your post-survey forms. At the conclusion of this, there will be lunch, and you can turn in your surveys to us then. Now I want to have, and again, thank you all very much for being here. Now let's have these take-home points. We're going to start with Sister Ashley Lee.
So I like to leave people with a message of hope. And hope for me is healing and operating in our purpose and in our endeavors, right? And so what I want you all to take away from this is we have a message of hope to provide to you. We're enlightening you, we're encouraging you, we're validating you, we're encouraging you to advocate for yourselves, and we're encouraging you to take charge and take control in how you can change your life, right? And so all it starts is with small changes. First getting the knowledge, then making small changes, sharing the information with people. We can spread the message of hope in our community, and we can heal ourselves within this community. And I hope that that's the message that you are left with, that there is hope and light, and we can fix this.
Double duty, Dr. Flano, please.
Thank you. I truly think that we can't really change a lot of these disparities without education, right? We don't get rid of health disparities without health equity, and bring about health equity without health literacy. And so you've had a lot of information over the past couple of days. A lot of times when we come to these, we are preaching to the choir, but I think every member of a choir knows somebody outside of their direct, the direct little community that needs to be sung to. So go out and sing some of the knowledge that you've learned today to them. And let's see if we can get change within our community. Because I think that's the only way we can do it is not advocates just for ourselves, but for our family, for our children, for our community. And then things make a change.
Ms. Yolanda Hildenbrand of the Norton Cancer Institute.
He always has to do extra. I'm going to just keep it simple. Education, communication, and questions. So you're here today, so that's part of the education. The communication is saying what you need, okay? And sometimes it's not taking no for an answer. And the question is, you ask me a question, I don't have the answer. You ask somebody a question. You keep asking questions till you get the answer that you need. Keep educating yourself. And like I said before, the best source of information comes from groups. It comes from people who know someone that's done, and they can get you information. So keep talking about it, keep raising concerns about it, and keep educating yourself.
Ms. Mildred Pierre, take us home.
Advocate for yourself. Ask questions and do research. If you have to change a doctor, change a doctor. If you feel like something is wrong, you know your body is your body. Something probably is wrong. And from a tobacco cessation background, we could do this together. It takes a whole village, right? The whole village is affected anyway. Your support system is everyone around you. I encourage you to quit if you have not quit yet. It's for your best interest. And I know we didn't mention this before, but when you are a tobacco user, your insurance is high. It's higher than normal. Yeah. But when you quit, the moment you quit, immediate benefits. Remember I said your premium will go down. Thank you. With the cessation program.
We're going to bring up Mr. Stan Watson, Deacon, who is going to close this out. But let's give a hand to our panel. Thank you all.